And we're back. And now we're going to be looking at, given this triangle, A, B, and C, A, B, and C, select the true or false statement, true or false for each statement of the sequences of transformations that can verify the triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABC. So we've got some statements here. The first one is the triangle is reflected across the y-axis, followed by a reflection across the across the x-axis. So there's two movements, right? The next one is the triangle is reflected across the x-axis, so it's different than this one, followed by a reflection across the y-axis. The triangle ABC is reflected across the y-axis, followed by a translation 6 units down. So each one has two movements, okay? So let's look at our accommodations here. We have the tutorial and we have the notepad, right? We've got that right there. We also have a calculator. But for this, I don't think we really probably need the calculator because I really want you to work this out on your graph paper or your whiteboard that has graph paper. If you need to use scratch paper that doesn't have lines on it, it'll probably be a little tougher. But remember, I don't want you to try to do this one in your head or to try to do it on the computer because your head is for thinking and your scratch paper or whiteboard is for recording your thinking. All right. So let's do a quick review of the vocabulary because sometimes we get a little cloudy on that. All right. Let's take a peek. So reflection is like a mirror. Rotation is turning. Okay, and the translation, it has that SL in there. Translation, a lot of times kids remember it as slide. That SL is slide. So let's take a peek at how this could work. Okay, for me, I think about reflection because this is the hardest one for me to visualize, is that when you did paintings like in first or second grade and you folded the paper, you put some paint on one side and then you folded it, right, squished it together. You had a reflection on the other side. So like here's our little fold line right down the middle. So that's reflection. It's reflecting what's on the other side. So our first question we have is reflected across the y-axis. So we've got y-axis here, x-axis here. So thinking about the reflection, like this is where our fold line is, right? So what would the points be named? Okay, so we know that this, let's take a peek, right? A, right, would be this angle. B would be here. And then, of course, C would be here. Okay, so that's reflected across the y-axis. Now, we're going to do the second movement, right, which is reflected across the x-axis. Let's check. So if you were to fold this, right, and these would be squished together like that butterfly, right, then B would be here, C would be here, and A would be here. So for the first question, the answer is yes. This does show it, right? That these are congruent. Let's check the next question. Reflected across the x-axis. Okay, so here's our x-axis, right? So if we fold it across here, we would get this triangle. Okay, and where do you think the A would go? Which point? Take a guess. Yes, the A would be here. Okay. Now, if we remember, like we squished it together with the painting, where would the B go? Here or here? Okay. The B, yes. And the last one, of course, C there. Now we're going to have it reflected across the y-axis, the y-axis. Okay, so we're reflecting. Remember, we're like putting the paint on here, and then we're folding along this y-axis. If you can see that in your mind, if you had that, does it work? Does the C go here? and the B go on the far side, thinking about that butterfly, and the A go here? Yep, it does. Okay, let's try the last one. Okay, reflected across the y-axis. Okay, so here's our y-axis. We're reflecting. We did this one before, so thinking about like where would the paint go, right? So where do you think A might go? A, right there. And then where would C go if it's reflected, if you had the paint, right? If this is our fold. C would go there and B would go there. Okay, so now translation, and remember translation, we have that SL is the slide. So we're just sliding this down. Did we slide it or did we reflect it? Yes, it's not a slide. It is a reflection, right? So this does not work for the last question. So we get back to our smarter atoms. We know that the first one was true. The second one was true. But for this last one, the translation going down, it is false. And that's how we do that problem. Remember, graph paper and whiteboards are your friend. That's all for now.